Alicia Mason never imagined her life would spiral into tragedy when she first met Daniel Carter in a small cafe in Savannah, Georgia. At the time, Alicia was a vibrant 27-year-old woman, her chestnut skin glowing, her deep eyes filled with dreams of a simple, happy family. Daniel, a handsome, charming white construction engineer, instantly captured her heart with a rare tenderness and kindness. They quickly fell deeply in love, and it wasn't long before Daniel proposed. Alicia accepted without hesitation. Friends and family initially worried about their racial and cultural differences, but Alicia and Daniel's love seemed to erase all doubts. They moved into a cozy little house surrounded by greenery, the front yard bursting with blooming roses. In the beginning, Alicia's life felt like a dream come true. She adored how Daniel softly kissed her forehead each morning before leaving for work, and cherished his daily calls from the construction site, simply checking in to make sure she was okay. Those small gestures made her believe Daniel was the perfect man that fate had sent her. However, Alicia failed to recognize that this radiant start was quietly casting a dark shadow, one that would soon engulf every bit of trust and happiness she had. After a few years, what Alicia had perceived as perfection began to fracture. She noticed changes in Daniel. Loving calls became rare, and his late-night returns increasingly frequent. Alicia tried desperately to convince herself it was merely due to his workload, yet her intuition whispered that something dreadful was looming. Then, one evening, Alicia inadvertently saw suspicious messages on Daniel's phone as he slept deeply on the sofa. Her heart tightened painfully as flirtatious words from a woman named Stacy appeared clearly before her eyes. "Are you coming over tomorrow night? I miss you so much." Alicia Mason realized then that her idyllic days were coming to an end. But what she didn't yet know was that a horrifying darkness awaited, poised to drag her into an abyss from which there was no return. Alicia remained silent, desperately trying to push away the dark thoughts triggered by the suspicious text message. She wanted to believe it was all just a misunderstanding. Perhaps Daniel was joking around, or it was merely a prank from a friend. But these forced explanations only made her feel worse. The days that followed were filled with tension. Alicia began carefully observing Daniel, noting every small gesture, hoping to find evidence of either loyalty or betrayal. Yet Daniel maintained his calm exterior, showing no sign of suspicion or anxiety. He continued to embrace her at night and whisper sweet words of love, though Alicia could sense the dishonesty behind every word, every touch, from the man she once trusted implicitly. Suspicion began to consume Alicia. She felt like an unwilling detective in the home she'd once loved and nurtured. Night after night, as Daniel slept soundly beside her, Alicia lay awake, silent tears soaking her pillow, her heart aching from the clear intuition of the painful truth that awaited her. Finally, the day Alicia had always feared arrived. One afternoon, when she unexpectedly returned home early after a canceled overtime shift, she stepped inside and immediately heard laughter coming from the bedroom. Her legs trembled, her breathing became shallow. Alicia moved quietly toward the slightly open bedroom door, the dim light casting shadows into the hallway. What she saw next would haunt her forever. Daniel was holding Stacy tightly on their marital bed. Stacy, a woman with shimmering blonde hair, giggled softly in the embrace of Alicia's husband. When Alicia forcefully pushed open the door, Daniel and Stacy turned around, startled. But what shocked Alicia most was Daniel's disturbingly calm expression. He made no effort to explain, no apology, no shame. Instead, Daniel stood up, looked straight into Alicia's eyes, and coldly said, "You're home early. Well, this is Stacy. She'll be staying here for a while. If you don't like it, feel free to leave." At that moment, Alicia Mason's world completely shattered. Standing there overwhelmed by humiliation and heartache, she knew the happiness she'd spent years building was nothing more than a cruel joke. In that exact instant, something inside Alicia changed forever. A cold, ruthless plan began taking shape in her mind. From this moment onward, none of their lives would ever be the same again. Alicia didn't utter a single word after Daniel openly announced his relationship with Stacy. She quietly turned and walked away, leaving behind Daniel's cold stare and Stacy's mocking smile. From that moment, Alicia became someone entirely different. No more silent tears. No more sleepless nights spent waiting for her unfaithful husband to return home. Now there was only a chilling calm, as if her heart had died at the exact instant she witnessed that horrifying scene. In the days that followed, Alicia moved through her home like a ghost, quietly observing Daniel and Stacy in the very house she had once cherished and carefully maintained. She memorized their every action, meal times, habits, routines, maintaining a facade of normalcy so they wouldn't suspect the grim plan forming in her mind. Carefully choosing the perfect moment to act, Alicia drove miles away to a distant hardware store, purchasing 2 large foam coolers, sturdy rope, a sharp knife, and various necessary tools. The cashier eyed Alicia curiously, but her expression remained indifferent as she calmly paid, then drove back home in silence. The house had become an invisible battleground. Daniel and Stacy continued their evenings filled with laughter, alcohol, and blatant disregard for Alicia's presence. They drank, laughed, and openly flaunted their affair right before her eyes. Alicia, whose simmering anger had solidified into a deadly resolve, remained patient, silently waiting for her opportunity. On a cold, rainy Friday night in early December, Daniel and Stacy drank until they passed out on the living room sofa. Alicia sat silently in the kitchen corner, eyes empty as she watched the 2 unconscious figures sprawled across the couch. Without hesitation or trembling, she slowly stood and walked towards them, gripping the sharp knife she'd hidden nearby. The faint glow of the dim ceiling lamp cast an eerie shadow of Alicia's expressionless face against the wall. Everything was in place, and Alicia Mason knew that from this moment, her life and the lives of the 2 people before her would be changed forever. It was a night of horror, fatefully set in motion, a night that none of them could ever escape. Outside, the rain grew heavier, blending with Alicia's rapidly beating heart. She stood silently in front of the sleeping couple, gripping the sharp knife tightly. Stacy lay curled on her side, her golden hair tangled messily across the sofa. Daniel faced upwards, mouth slightly open. For a brief moment, Alicia hesitated, staring at the face of the man she had once deeply loved, but memories of Daniel's cold cruelty quickly brought her back to harsh reality. Alicia took a deep breath, raised her hand, and struck decisively and coldly. The knife plunged deeply into Daniel's chest. His eyes opened wide in panic, his mouth moved as if to scream, but only a weak gasp escaped. Without hesitation, Alicia withdrew the knife and drove it in several more times, each stab releasing years of accumulated resentment. Awakened by the commotion, Stacy's eyes flew open in terror as she saw Alicia and the blood covering Daniel's body. Before she could react, Alicia swiftly turned the knife towards Stacy. Without a chance to plead or explain, Stacy quickly collapsed, her body going limp in the spreading pool of blood. Alicia stood there, breathing heavily, her hand trembling slightly as drops of blood dripped coldly from a knife onto the floor. She glanced down at the 2 motionless bodies, a sudden emptiness briefly overwhelming her, but Alicia quickly composed herself. She carefully placed the knife aside and began meticulously cleaning the bloodstains from the floor, making sure no detail was overlooked. Her actions were swift, precise, and methodical. Alicia silently dragged the 2 bodies into the large foam coolers she had previously prepared, tightly packing them inside, then secured the lids firmly with rope. Once finished, she carefully scanned the living room to ensure no evidence remained. The rain continued to pour heavily as Alicia drove away, carrying the 2 coolers filled with the horrific secret. She headed toward a deserted wooded area on the outskirts, chosen earlier for this grim task. That night, Alicia's car vanished into the darkness and heavy rain, carrying a terrible secret from which she knew there was no turning back. The car sped down the deserted road leading to the remote, wooded outskirts, the relentless rain pounding against the windshield, obscuring Alicia's vision. Behind her, the two foam coolers sat silently, occasionally making slight noises whenever the vehicle jolted over potholes, a chilling reminder of the horror she'd just committed. After about half an hour, Alicia pulled over near a dark, isolated edge of the forest, far from any residential area, a location she'd chosen well in advance. Rain continued to pour relentlessly, and darkness enveloped everything around her, leaving only the sound of falling rain and her racing heartbeat. She stepped out of the car, using all her strength to drag the coolers to the muddy ground, then grabbed the shovel she'd prepared in the trunk. Alicia began digging, each heavy, determined shovel thrust sinking into the softened earth. The rain had softened the soil, making her work slightly easier but also causing her feet to sink deeply into the cold mud. Mud splashed on her body and clothes, but Alicia didn't stop. She knew clearly this was her only chance to hide her dark secret forever. When the hole was finally deep enough, Alicia mustered her remaining strength and pushed both coolers down into it. A dull, muted thud echoed briefly, then silence returned. Alicia stood motionless for a few seconds, staring down at the two containers lying quietly at the bottom of the dark hole, before quickly resuming her task, carefully filling the hole with earth, shovelful after shovelful. After smoothing out the ground, Alicia scattered branches and dried leaves on the surface, trying her best to make everything appear as natural and undisturbed as possible, erasing any final traces of her presence. Returning to her car, Alicia's heart raced and breathing came heavily, but her expression remained cold and resolute. She started the engine, pulled away from the forest edge, and seamlessly blended back into the traffic on a main road, heading home as if nothing had happened. Yet Alicia had no way of knowing that just a few weeks later, the secret she'd buried beneath the damp earth wouldn't remain hidden forever. A group of hunters passing by would soon notice the sickening odor seeping up from beneath the forest floor, and when they uncovered the horrifying truth buried below, Alicia Mason would find herself unable to turn back. During the first few days following that horrific event, Alicia lived her life as if numb. She continued going to work, smiled politely at neighbors, and chatted casually with people around her, as though her life hadn't just been shattered. Yet every night, the haunting images from that rainy evening tormented her mind relentlessly. Alicia often woke suddenly, drenched in sweat and gasping for breath, feeling as if invisible hands were gripping her throat. 2 weeks passed, and Alicia began to believe her plan had succeeded flawlessly. No one seemed suspicious. No one searched for Daniel or Stacy. Everything appeared to have quietly faded into oblivion. But on one weekend afternoon, as Alicia stood outside watering her flowers, she saw a police car slowly approaching her street, eventually stopping directly in front of her home. Her heart tightened in fear. 2 officers exited the vehicle, serious expressions etched on their faces. After quickly introducing themselves, they immediately asked Alicia about Daniel and Stacy. Alicia tried hard to maintain her composure, calmly replying that she hadn't seen either of them for 2 weeks, that Daniel had left her to be with Stacy openly. But the officers appeared unconvinced by her explanation. Shortly afterward, Alicia was informed she had to accompany them to the police station for further questioning. Her heart began racing uncontrollably, sensing clearly that things were starting to unravel. Inside the interrogation room, Alicia repeated her story once again, but the detectives silently listened, then suddenly placed a series of photographs onto the table, images from the crime scene where the bodies had been discovered. The pictures left Alicia stunned. The 2 foam coolers had been dug up from beneath the damp earth, the ropes still intact, and inside were the decomposing remains of Daniel and Stacy. The officers explained that a group of hunters had noticed a strange odor during their walk through the forest, leading to the horrifying discovery. Within hours, all clues had pointed directly toward Alicia. Alicia sat motionless in the interrogation room, staring blankly at the gruesome photos. There was nothing left for her to say in defense. The illusion of peaceful days had finally shattered, and from this moment onward, Alicia Mason's life was once again plunged deep into an unending spiral of tragedy. When the police announced Alicia was being arrested for murder, she offered no resistance, no reaction. Alicia remained completely silent, her eyes vacant as if her mind had abandoned her body, leaving it behind in that cold interrogation room. In the days following, news of the wife who killed her husband and his lover spread rapidly throughout the city, shocking local public opinion. The trial proceeded swiftly. Alicia refused to hire her own lawyer, nor did she utter a single word in her own defense. When the judge asked if she had anything to say before sentencing, Alicia merely shook her head slightly, her eyes still staring blankly into the empty space before her. Those in attendance were baffled and disturbed by her strange calmness, as though she had long ago accepted that her life would forever be bound to this harsh verdict. Ultimately, the sentence was pronounced: life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Alicia was escorted from the courtroom amid whispers and murmurs, but she paid no attention, quietly following the guards. Her mind was utterly blank, devoid of any hope for the future. The initial days in Georgia State Prison passed in total isolation and chilling loneliness for Alicia. She rejected all attempts at conversation, refused to engage with anyone, spending endless hours staring at the walls of her cell. But as time passed, Alicia gradually adapted to life behind bars and slowly began seeking a small glimmer of warmth amid the overwhelming coldness of prison life. On a hot summer day, Alicia was taken to participate in a rare joint social event involving male and female prisoners from two separate facilities. It was there that Alicia first encountered Marcus Hayes, a quiet, reserved inmate serving a 15-year sentence for armed robbery. Marcus's gaze met Alicia's cold eyes, a seemingly insignificant moment, yet marking the start of a secret and dangerously risky relationship that lay ahead. Despite clearly understanding the recklessness of allowing emotions to guide her, Alicia couldn't stop the vulnerability within her from growing, a vulnerability born from a soul already deeply wounded. Marcus quickly became the one person she could genuinely open up to, even if only in brief, stolen moments. What Alicia couldn't foresee, however, was that this hidden relationship would soon bring about an unexpected turning point, simultaneously a spark of hope and the beginning of yet another tragic chapter in her life. The forbidden connection between Alicia and Marcus grew stronger with each secret meeting, always brief, but filled with a tenderness Alicia had long forgotten. Within the harsh confines of prison, Marcus provided a rare warmth, offering a fragile sense of comfort in her otherwise bleak existence. Alicia found herself relying heavily on these stolen moments, unaware of the consequences that awaited her. Several months later, Alicia began to notice alarming changes in her body. Constant fatigue, dizziness, and a persistent nausea filled her days. At first, she ignored these symptoms, assuming it was simply stress or exhaustion for prison life. But as the symptoms worsened, she reluctantly sought medical attention from the prison infirmary. The news delivered by the prison doctor was both joyous and devastating. Alicia was pregnant, but alongside this revelation came another grim diagnosis. Routine blood tests had revealed that Alicia was HIV positive. The news struck Alicia like a cold wave of horror. Further tests confirmed that the source of infection was her late husband, Daniel, whose reckless lifestyle and secretive affairs had sealed her fate long before that terrible night. Alicia's mind spiraled into despair, realizing she had unknowingly carried the disease for months, unaware that Daniel's betrayal had cut deeper than she'd ever imagined. Yet despite the overwhelming anguish, Alicia resolved to protect the innocent life growing inside her. Regardless of her own condition, she vowed that her child would not suffer the consequences of Daniel's betrayal. As Alicia's pregnancy progressed, her anxiety intensified. Each medical examination brought fear, dread, and fragile hope. Prison life offered no comfort, no support. She faced every challenge alone, haunted by the possibility that her child might inherit her disease. What Alicia couldn't anticipate was that fate, cruel and unpredictable as always, would soon intervene again. Her unborn child was destined for a different life, one that neither Alicia nor anyone around her could have possibly foreseen. The months of pregnancy spent behind bars were the longest and heaviest days Alicia had ever endured. Each night, she placed her hands gently on her belly, softly whispering apologies to her unborn child for sins the innocent life had no part in. She continued her regular prenatal checkups, each appointment burdened with the fear that her child might inherit the HIV that her unfaithful husband had passed to her. Finally, the day Alicia feared most arrived. On a cold winter morning, Alicia went into labor and was swiftly moved to the prison's infirmary. The baby's cry echoed through the sterile room, and at that moment, Alicia felt both deep pain and a faint glimmer of hope. But her relief was short-lived. Immediately after birth, doctors conducted tests to determine if her baby was infected with HIV. Alicia waited anxiously, every second stretching into eternity, her heart tightening painfully with each passing minute. When the doctor entered with the results in hand, Alicia held her breath, her heart nearly stopping. The doctor's eyes were gentle, his voice comforting as he announced the most miraculous news Alicia had ever received. Her child was perfectly healthy, completely free of infection. A rare tear escaped down Alicia's cheek, a tear of relief and gratitude she never imagined she'd experience again. Yet that brief joy was cruelly cut short when Alicia faced a devastating truth. She wouldn't be permitted to raise her child. Authorities swiftly arranged for the baby to be placed into foster care. Alicia was only allowed a few fleeting moments with her child, her frail fingers tightly grasping the baby's tiny hand before the infant was taken from her. In the days that followed, Alicia existed in quiet agony. Each sleepless night, she wondered where her child was, whether they were happy, and if they would ever learn about their mother, imprisoned and haunted by her past. Although her child was healthy and would likely have a better life, for Alicia, that small light of hope also meant she would never see her child again. Life had once again abandoned Alicia Mason to loneliness and despair, and this time, she felt certain that she would forever remain trapped in darkness, never again able to find her way out. After her baby was taken away, Alicia descended fully into endless darkness. The days and months that followed were marked by silence, isolation, and an unrelenting chill. No one visited her anymore, and Alicia no longer expected anything from life. Each morning she woke, staring blankly at the cold white walls, devoid of purpose or hope. As time passed, HIV gradually took its toll on Alicia's health, slowly but relentlessly weakening her. Yet to her, it no longer mattered. She even silently hoped that her final day would arrive soon, freeing her from the relentless torture within her mind. Occasionally, Alicia reflected on her past, revisiting the mistakes she'd made, the romance with Daniel, his cruel betrayal, and her horrific decision on that rainy night. These thoughts sliced through her mind like a blade, torturing her day by day. But more painful than anything else was the memory of the child she'd held just once for a fleeting moment. One day, Alicia received a brief letter from the Child Welfare Agency, informing her that her baby had been officially adopted by a kind and caring family, a family who could offer a brighter future than she ever could. The letter was intended as a comfort, yet it brought Alicia unbearable pain. She realized fully that her child was no longer hers, that she would never have the chance to atone for the wrong she had committed. The years passed slowly, with Alicia existing in solitude and despair, endlessly waiting for days that held no hope or meaning. She closed herself off completely, never again opening her heart to anyone. Fellow prisoners avoided her, frightened by her icy detachment. Alicia became a ghost haunting the prison, the only place left for her. Ultimately, Alicia Mason accepted the brutal truth that her entire life, from birth until now, had been steeped in tragedy. She no longer fought, no longer sought forgiveness. To her, life had ended long ago, and all that remained were endless days spent in pain and remorse. Alicia Mason's life stood as the starkest proof that a single, impulsive decision could destroy an entire destiny, leaving wounds that would never, ever heal.